Well, the National Motocross Championships finished at Pukekohe early in March. This afternoon we have coverage for you of the final round of 3 races in the 125cc class. The star performer in the earlier rounds of this particular class was 17-year-old Daryl King of Taranaki. But 2 weeks before the final round, he broke his wrist. Nevertheless, in a brave performance, he still took his place on the starting line. Let's see how he performed now in the final round with commentators Tony Palmer and Brian Lawrence.
The overall points leader in this, the most popular class, the 125, where we have 41 starters in the first of 3 rounds today, is Daryl King from Taranaki, who leads with 89 points overall. His closest competitor is number 2, James Deacon on the Tajiva from Australia on 73 points. Leon Andrew on 71, John Penny on 64, Mix Rowe on 50, Gavin Hayes on 45. That's the top 6 on points, and they will be in numbers 1 to 6. Got a start. They've opted not to use the gate because we had a malfunction with it before the start, so they're starting on the flag. A 20-minute race. The cut-off point will be at 19 minutes and 30, so that when they go past the start-finish line, if it is after 19 minutes and 30, that will be the last lap. If it's before that, they'll take another. Around about 2.5 minutes per lap. Leading out very, very quickly indeed there, straight off, is number 35, who's Mike Barrett from Pukekohe. This is his local track. I don't imagine, though, that it'll be too long before Daryl King and James Deacon are up there with him. For the benefit of the spectators not familiar with motocross, the colour coding is basically Yamaha's white, Suzuki's are yellow, the Kawasaki's are green, and the Hondas are red. Mike Barrett being challenged very quickly already by John Penny. John Penny from Taupo on the Kawasaki, right up behind him. Plenty of space for places to be made up here. 1 or 2 very, very clever riders that we've seen in practice who've really made mincemeat of this track that we looked at in practice yesterday and thought would be extremely difficult. Some of these top riders have made it look easy.
Certainly one of the more demanding motocross tracks that we've seen, but the interesting part about it is that each race is around about 20 minutes duration, so it's all very well getting a good flyer of a start, and there's no doubt about that, but Mike Barrett certainly came away from the flag there like the proverbial shot out of a gun, but 20 minutes aboard one of these, particularly on a circuit like this, despite the fact that they've got enormous suspension travel, is very, very demanding on the body.
Rated as the most physically demanding sport there is in the world.
Just take a look at the circuit. It's extremely rough places, but he's actually managing to smooth it out with double jumps here and just taking completely different lines. And watching Daryl King behind him, he was moving very quickly into some similar lines. But obviously, as the race goes on, the circuit is going to get worse and worse. And of course, by the time we get round to the final heats this afternoon, these riders have got a very, very big job on their hands.
Tremendous ride from John Penny in the lead there, having overtaken Mike Barrett very early on in the race. Right up behind him now, James Deacon.
Very smooth, he's flowing very well with the circuit at the moment. He's, actual fact, there's Daryl King now having a go at James Deacon. These two sort of battling amongst themselves, and it's actually allowed John Penny from Taupo to creep away a little bit.
Lapping some of the slower riders back in the field. John Penny getting through the traffic, which may help his chances somewhat. Daryl King sticking right on his tail. You notice where some of the slower riders are making 2 jumps out of some of these. The top riders just go clean over the second one. That's King right up the challenge now on John Penny, and King's lost it. Well, he picked up the pace and he was trying for all his worth. That may have cost him his chance. He's pointing the wrong way. He'll spin it round and get back on the job, but he's lost the place he had and certainly lost the chance to challenge. I think his chance to challenge in this race is now over. Daryl King, the points leader. He'll certainly want to be back on the pace and finishing in the places to keep his points lead alive. Just looking in slow-mo again as Daryl King, the points leader overall, tried to challenge John Penny for the lead. The back of the bike took a big step sideways, and it was all really over before the back hit the ground again. He's off but unhurt, up very, very quickly, managing to avoid the oncoming traffic, and was back on the bike very quickly indeed. There's Penny lapping some more back markers, coming up to get the white flag, which indicates he's on his last lap. So 2.5 minutes remain for this challenge from Leon Andrew. And it really is a challenge. There's Penny. Look at Andrew and how close he's got. In the last couple of laps, he's made up a phenomenal amount. It's a realistic challenge.
Just 16 years of age. He's drawing right up almost alongside him there, but Penny a little quicker out of the turn, down the drop, through the left-hander, up the very steep. This is very, very important to get a good drive at the bottom of the hill there, to keep the power on and not waste a lot of time in encouraging wheel spin.
He's certainly going to have a go at it. He's been sitting back there. He will know how tired John Penny is, because Penny's been doing all the work in the front on his own. And Leon Andrew certainly sees it as a realistic challenge. Let's hope he doesn't overcook it, because second place is healthy for points, but he can only see the checkered flag at the moment. Making short work of the stutter bumps there. And he's through.
Oh, a good drive through there. Well, he's just lost a little bit of forward momentum there for a minute, but he's right up alongside him, and this is really starting to put some pressure on John Penny now.
Penny will have to spur from having seen just how quickly Leon Andrew got through there.
She's both of them under pressure now, and you can see both these riders getting a little untidy, making little mistakes that should never really have happened, but John Penny's still holding out a very, very narrow lead.
Leon Andrew just having a little bit of a problem there, dropping it back. A little bit of a problem with the traffic, which perhaps has just dropped them too far back now. I think it's John Penny's race. But a superb challenge from the youngster Leon Andrew. James Deacon still in third place. All the riders getting the white flag as the check-in comes out for John Penny. And right behind him, Leon Andrew. So the winner, John Penny on the Kawasaki from Taupo, who enhances his points totally, was fourth overall. In second place, an excellent ride from Leon Andrew. A last-minute challenge, trying very, very hard indeed. Got the wheel in front, but then John Penny got him back. And in third place, James Deacon, who takes 15 points to add to his overall tally. John Penny, number 4. The man to watch. Daryl King tried to challenge him and had a little off in the process of doing so. Remember, they started their first race with the flag because these gates weren't working. Let's hope that the start gate is working on this occasion. As they get heated up and the gate is down and working. And away for him. Let's see who gets the whole shot. Two little buzzing bees.
Brilliant run there, Tony, from Daryl King. Number 122 it is, getting the good start there. That's Bryce McDougall from the Northern King Country, but what a fly Daryl King had. He got left initially at the drop, but he's right on the job, and there he is going up alongside number 3, Leon Andrew, who was second in the last heat. And he's certainly going to make amends for his early defeat in the opening heat, but charging right back again there is
Leon Andrew.
Yes, he's right there with him.
Leon Andrew in the lead at this stage. Daryl King in second place. Let's have a look as they come down this very fast little piece. Leon Andrew, Daryl King. Then go back to Bryce McDougall, who got an excellent start. One wonders if he can hang on to it for that long. But John Penny won't be far away from coming through as well. Didn't get a particularly good start. He's back there in fifth place at this stage. Right behind Gavin Hayes from Wanganui on the Honda.
Certainly a very enthusiastic start to the second heat. There's no doubt about that. Everybody's looking to drag those points back. We've got Daryl King on 102, and then we've got James Deacon and Leon Andrew both on 88 apiece, and John Penny on 84. So second, third and fourth is very, very closely contested as we move into the second heat.
Leon Andrew from Manawatu on the Kawasaki came in Deakin today with 71 points. Now has 88 points. Daryl King in second place, the leader with 102, and James Deakin on equal points with Leon Andrew, both on 88. The man to watch is in second place, Daryl King. He's the points leader overall, and will stay the points leader if they finish this way. If he can sit on Leon Andrews' tail and wait for him to make a mistake, perhaps that's the best he can hope for.
There's a big gap now between first and third. Before they were climbing all over each other, and it was the proverbial pocket handkerchief to cover the three of them, but Daryl King's dropped right back out of it now. Oh, there he goes, and down he goes. What a great shame that was for Leon Andrew, who led the race for so long. And just a little bit of excitement there, perhaps overdid it. The bars have dropped down. This is James Deakin, our new race leader now. Daryl King will go up into second position. But it was the classic flying W, Tony, that trained him.
I'll have to have another look and see what happened with Daryl King, obviously taking evasive action. But it looks to me as though James Deakin has taken over the lead. I imagine Daryl King is second at this stage. But just the tiniest lapse, as we said, of concentration can really cost the race. And what a shame, because Leon Andrew had done nothing wrong. He'd ridden superbly and looked to have it all totally under control. Just a tiny lapse or an inch the wrong way, and it's all gone. So there is James Deakin from Australia on the Kajiva, having taken over the lead of the race. Looking back for Daryl King as they're on the last lap. James Deakin, of course, still has to get to the finish of the race. You can never speak too soon in motocross. Should I say you can often speak too soon. Here is Daryl King in second place still, having had to take evasive action behind Leon Andrew when he had that spill, allowing James Deakin to come through. There's the checkered flag coming out now for James Deakin from Australia on the Kajiva. Second place to Daryl King, and we'll see how far back Leon Andrew is if he managed to get the bike back on the circuit again. Check those places, first, second and third for you in just a moment. There he is, Leon Andrew, back on the circuit. If he was back on quick enough, even with the handlebars turned down as they are, he's still going to get third.
He was very lucky in that accident, Tony, not to perhaps damage the throttle cable or the clutch cable. He'll be very happy to finish anyway, at least accumulate some points.
This was Leon Andrew, the man who had ridden flawlessly to lead the race right from the start. And on the last lap, he just had an off. Following behind him, Daryl King had to take evasive action, allowing James Deakin to come through into second place. Darren Anderson from the Hutt Valley really wanting this one. He started the day with 44 points, so he's a little out of contention in terms of the national championship. The man sitting right behind him is in the box seat in the overall points. That's Daryl King from Taranaki. Started the day with 89, a margin of quite a few over James Deakin. James Deakin, just looking through the list here, had 73 on the Kajiva, the Italian machine.
See now if Henderson can maintain this blistering pace which he set from the drop of the gate.
Incredible pace, isn't it?
Brilliant. Very, very good indeed. He's got some very, very heavy guys there behind him in terms of experience. There's Deakin having a challenge now. He's looking at King. He moves to the left-hand side. He's taken Daryl King now. James Deakin, the Australian, now on the Kajiva, moves up into second position behind number 7 from the Hutt Valley, mounted on the 125 Yamaha, Darren Henderson. Deakin's looking for a victory in this one. He wants to take that checkered flag. 108 points he's accumulated so far.
Having a little off Shane Blackwell from the North King Country.
This is good racing. This is the sort of stuff that the large crowd have come here to expect. Up the hill, and there goes the Italian Cagiva, ridden by Australian James Deacon, into the lead. Darren Henderson taking a wide right-hand line going up there, getting into a bit of the soft stuff, perhaps not getting the traction that he originally intended, and this allowed James Deacon to get through.
James Deacon on the little Cagiva, really riding it for all his worth. An inspired ride for him after very competitive rides in the first and second races. Have a look at where he's going there. Right up the side where there are no bumps. Very quick line.
We'll just see how many of the other riders are actually going to pick up a similar line. Number 5 there, Mitch Rowe from Taranaki, getting spurred on there by his pit crew.
Daryl King has come back up to third place now. So Daryl King has got the chase on Mitch Rowe.
Daryl King certainly a very deserved national championship. He's tried very hard. This whole setup very professionally turned out. The bike is absolutely immaculate. There's 5. That's Mitch Rowe, who's just gone down.
Which puts Daryl King up to second place, and he had a margin of 11 points for his lead in the national championship. And now if he finishes in second place, he will win quite comfortably from James Deacon, because Mitch Rowe seems to be out of contention, having had that little spill. This man, James Deacon, is going to win if he continues at the current rate. Hasn't made a mistake. Both feet off the foot pegs that time, just for the crowd. Obviously a very confident man at this stage of the race. And once again, we'd issue the warning, don't try it yourself. There's the checkered flag for James Deacon. But the man we're looking back for is the second place finisher, who's Daryl King. This second place, if he makes it to the finish line, which he does in beautiful style, Daryl King knows with the arm wave that he has won the national 125 title for Honda. So the 125 title has gone quite comfortably to Daryl King on the Honda with 136 points. In second place with 128 is James Deacon. With 180 in third place, John Penny. Then with 103, Leon Andrews. And on 80 points...
in the 3 races of the final round with a broken wrist. Today we go up in the horsepower, move to the 250cc class. Our commentators are Tony Palmer and Brian Lawrence.
Start now in the first of the 250 races. 38 starters. The points leader is David Furrs, but the man to watch, and I'm sure he won't be far away from the lead, is Craig Dack from Australia, number 3. Riding the Honda, the number 1 works rider for Honda in Australia now. Watching him in practice, he is absolutely phenomenal. The man who got the whole shot, though, was David Furrs from Taranaki on the Kawasaki. He has 79 points and is the overall points leader. Frank Brundage having taken over the lead now. The American Frank Brundage riding for the South Waikato Club today. One of the stars, the upcoming stars in the American motocross circuit. And I would expect the battle with Frank Brundage to come from Craig Dack, Vaughan Style and David Furrs. Looking at the order there already.
Brundage he's got a very, very handy lead. He's certainly a very spectacular man on a motocross bike. That's really laying on the style there. That's the only sort of thing that you see coming from America there. Probably just laying it on, having a bit of fun. A man who obviously enjoys his racing, but wasting a little bit of time. You know, when you're up in the air, you're not really going forward as quick as you possibly can.
And just a little word of warning in case you watched that and thought you might try it, please don't. It is potentially incredibly dangerous unless you have the kind of skill and experience that these top riders have.
Craig Dack's had a very colourful year last year. He finished second to the expatriate American, the great Jimmy Ellis, in the 1985 Australian 250 Motocross Nationals, and was third in the 125 class. But there's no doubt about this guy, Brundage. He's certainly a very, very quick man. There is Craig Dack to the left of the screen, and our race leader American, Frankie Brundage.
A little bit of an anxious moment there for Brundage, which has allowed Dack to close up substantially on him. You can see already a number of riders had been through that little point where the red tape was broken. Now have a look at Craig Dack now. He's really making a charge on it. Saw the tiny mistake from Brundage, and he's trying to close up.
He's choosing a different line here, taking the left-hand side of the circuit. Brundage all in the middle. Of course, this is very, very important, getting maximum drive out of this. Try to avoid as many bumps as you possibly can, but also at the same time find the shortest way round. But Australian Dack is right on the chase here. He's on the back of the American now as they go over the starter jumps once again. Tail end is moving to the left-hand side, giving the race leaders a very clear run through here.
Let's see how much Brundage has got to return the challenge. 12 minutes gone now of the 20. Let's have a look at the style of those two. Brundage and Dack over that leap as if it wasn't even there, flying through the air with the greatest of ease, and Dack just being held up by a back marker, stalling on the inside of a corner, and that may have just cost him the advantage he'd made up and worked so hard for.
It was 14 John Charlin, the motorer, who stalled on the inside there, perhaps he was obviously trying to make way there for Dack, perhaps was getting a little bit excited about the rider coming up behind him, and dropped a gear there. It doesn't take much to stall these things. So he's going to be working very, very hard. There's Brundage charging up through the tail enders once again. So we'll put the watch on now and just check the gap between first and second. It's around about 9 seconds at the start. He got away on him, and now there is Craig Dack right on the back of Brundage again. He's recovered very, very quickly from that one. It's a very awkward part of the circuit to pass on.
He's done all the work again. He's obviously seen it in his sights. Dack's going to challenge, and he's through. Dack through on Brundage. The Australian overtakes the American. Craig Dack really putting out the challenge, picking up about 20 or 30 metres, going past down the inside, and on the uphill piece he was well ahead, and Frank Brundage really had no answer. So it's Honda from Kawasaki. Craig Dack on the Works Honda, which admittedly is perhaps a tiny bit more powerful than the rest of the Hondas in the race. Having a Works bike is always some minor advantage, but you've got to have the rider ability as well. There's no shortage of rider ability here with either Dack or Brundage. And just look at how much Dack has made up on that side of the circuit. Brundage has dropped back substantially now. Craig Dack really riding away. Started the day with 73 points. He'll have 93 if he finishes where he is now. And he'll still be ahead of Frank Brundage because Frank Brundage was 19 points in arrears anyway.
A lot of the pressure now off him, Tony. He's not jumping as high as what he was before, but notice how well these bikes handle coming out of turns. There's no big speedway-style slides. When the power comes on, they've got them headed in the right direction.
He's got off the pace just slightly, but just have a look at how much quicker he is than the rest of the field. Even riding at 8/10. Just about a one-man race since Craig Dack took over from Frank Brundage in the United States. Not far away from seeing a checkered flag now. The young Australian going for an outright assault on the New Zealand national title, which of course he can win. a resident rider will still be given trophy as the national title. Flag marshal giving the white flag this time, a little late. 21 minutes gone. So on his last lap now, Craig Dack. That this man could be beaten.
Yes, he certainly had a brilliant run at Wanganui at the second round. That too was a very quick course, but today he showed that, you know, the style that has really taken him to the top, and obviously riding in Honda Australia's #1 position. It's certainly a position which is not taken lightly. He'll possibly be groomed the way in which Jeff Leask has been groomed for several races in the United States and overseas in the very near future. A lot of experience in the Team Honda Australia camp. The orange flag out there signifying that there is an apparent danger on the circuit, perhaps a fallen rider. Similar type of system used in car and road racing.
To say, except that if Craig Dack can continue this kind of style for the duration of today's meeting in 3 races, I can't see him being beaten overall. Checkered flag this time for Craig Dack from Australia. What a superbly ridden race, and a huge gap back to 2nd and 3rd places. 38 starters once again in the 250 class. This their 2nd race, the order of the finish of the first one. Craig Dack from Australia first, Vaughan Stiles 2nd, and Frank Brundage of the United States in 3rd place. Frank Brundage, the man who led out very, very quickly at the start. So watch for any of the first 6 numbers to get a flyer at the start. There's not as big a points gap in this class as there is in the Open or the 125. David Purrs led at the start of the day with 79 points. Vaughan Style had 74. Craig Dack was 73, and Greg Atkins on 57. But after the first race, David Purrs has 92, but the leader is Craig Dack with 93 points, and Vaughan Style on 91. So very close at the top of the field in 250 class. The man to look for again, I'm sure, is Craig Dack, number 3 from Australia, the #1 works rider from Australia. Very competitive machinery and an incredibly talented rider. The whole shot, all important again. That being the first corner. They're waiting now anxiously for the gate to drop. They'll be off and away. An enormous, straight, long sprint. 40-odd starters in this field. Very, very fast this initial stage. Let's have a look at this race down to the first corner. See who gets on the brakes the latest. Sorting themselves into the line. And already Craig Dack from Australia out in the lead. If he can get there that quickly, I don't think they're going to challenge him. It's between 70 and 80 miles an hour, that straight stretch. Very, very fast indeed on dirt. Craig Dack leading out. Warren Thompson with him, I think, from Company, number 5. Sitting in 2nd place, trying to go around the outside at the first corner. Yes, it is Warren Thompson. You notice that the Pukekohe club here have their own irrigation system right around this circuit, keeping the dust down. They have the sprinklers on at the moment. I don't think the riders will be too worried about that. It'll be nice and cooling for them, and they know that it improves the surface with not as much slippery dust on the top.
only problem they're likely to have, Tony, would be those who are not wearing perhaps a roll-off style goggle, or those with the tear-off sign. In other words, a very, very thin plastic sheet which goes across the top of the goggle lens itself, and they can tear off as it gets all the dirt and everything thrown on it. But it's certainly more of a blessing than it is of a hindrance to them, that's for sure. This is the race leader, Craig Dack, who goes into the second heat of the 250 class, 1 point ahead of the Taranaki rider David Furs.
Look at that lead that Dack has already. The master leaper, and already coming off is Boston Wadsworth, who was on 22 points at the start of the day. Man from Marlborough having some trouble getting that bike upright with the oncoming traffic. Very talented rider, Boston Wadsworth. That's probably done his chances in this race. We'll get it started again.
He's lost a good 10 or 15 places here, I would think. Perhaps it's a wonder there wasn't an orange flag out there to warn riders exactly what happened. And here's the man who was lying in second position, number 5, Warren Thompson. He's obviously, he's fallen as well.
Just trying to straighten up the handlebars. Almost running on his own now, Craig Dack. Second place there, and third place having been pulled up by Frank Brundage. He came from nowhere, got a very bad start. He was back about 10th or 11th place from the start, and now starting to work his way through the field. He's got Born Style to get past here. Just watching Craig Dack from Australia while he went out very, very hard and absolute earnest right at the start. Got that hole shot. Once he had established that he was in the lead, he seems, I don't know if it's my imagination watching him or not, but he seems to have backed off just slightly in the absence of any immediate competition. That's Frank Brundage just got past Born Style. He chased him for the best part of 3 laps. But he's got an enormous amount to make up if he has any hope of trying to catch Craig Dack. Australia, America, Australia at this stage in the New Zealand National Championship.
Even though we've got these overseas visitors here for our National Championship, I think it's really a plus for New Zealand riders, because, you know, they can only but learn from them. There's different styles of racing in America and Australia, and I think New Zealand motocross is certainly very much on the way up. I think we've got some very, very talented riders, and it's very encouraging to walk through the pits and see some familiar faces back again, you know, who spent time in Australia during our winter. Names like Chris Maindonald, who's doing very well for himself in the United Kingdom over the last couple of years in British Championship support races, and of late the British Championship. And names like Murray Anderson. I think New Zealand riders in Australia have held their head up very well.
Style of motocross ridden in New Zealand and Australia is more akin to that ridden in the United States, perhaps based closer to stadium-type motocross rather than in Europe, where they are very long enduros, usually 45 minutes. 3 races in a day of 45 minutes and a much longer track. Perhaps with a higher degree of difficulty in terms of being able to negotiate that track, and it's a different style than New Zealanders are accustomed to. But television, to a large degree, has dictated the shorter tracks with high jumps and close together bumps, so that it can be based around television cameras and coverage.
I think this type of circuit is much far more interesting, you know, for spectators and riders, rather than big, long, fast sweeping corners. That's really not what motocross is all about, or back before it obtained the name motocross, it came from the English side of things, and it was called scrambling back in the old BSA, Maxless, AJS days. Enormously great heavy motorcycles, and this class of racing has actually just been revived in the South Island.
Not hard to see where it got its name, scrambling. Craig Dack from Australia, completely unchallenged in the first race and seemingly unchallenged in this second race, on his way to taking a New Zealand national title. The #1 rider for Honda now in Australia, and obviously with a big big future in front of him. Has superb bike control, that kind of natural talented balance that really only occurs, perhaps 1 in every 100 riders have this kind of natural ability that gives them that advantage that stands them apart from the rest of the field. The ability to do things like that.
It's quite a demanding circuit mentally to perhaps learn as well, because there's a lot of blind jumps coming over the top of this, and to know exactly where to put it. Craig Dack knows the right part of the circuit. He seems to land within a few inches, which is still very, very good calculations, bearing in mind the condition of the circuit as the day goes on.
White flag this time for Craig Dack. Still Frankie Brundage behind him, and Vaughan Style in third place. But Craig Dack, having completed 20 minutes on his last lap now. Track starting to cut up just a little, as you'd expect at this stage of the day. And for the third round, there's going to be quite a lot of tough stuff to negotiate. The stutter jumps break up a little, and the surface doesn't provide you with a line that is obvious. A fair amount of guesswork goes into it. 40-odd riders in each class circulating around. The track obviously changes lap by lap. Number 24 there, Andrew Stewart from Pukekohe. 24th ranked in the Nationals, being passed with quite considerable ease by Craig Dack. On the last lap, needing only to stay upright. As we saw earlier today, it can all go wrong even from here. I think he's riding within his limits at this stage though. Looking very much like a clear win to Craig Dack. Quick look over the shoulder to see that nobody is there to challenge him. Plenty of lap riders riding alongside him. The other two in contention, Frankie Brundage and Vaughan Style, both a long way back behind Craig Dack. Just starting to fly again after the watering the circuit had at the start of the race. White flag out for the last of the back markers, and Craig Dack comes through on the checkered flag. Looking back, it's quite a substantial margin he's won by. Frankie Brundage, we think, still second, and Vaughan Style in third place.
And we'll have the 250cc class. Now it's time for the open class event, and the commentators are Tony Palmer and Brian Lawrence.
We have 25 starters in the first of the open class races. 500cc machines, the points being led by number 1 Graham Allen from Taitapu near Christchurch on 91 points. Brian Patterson, part of the famous Patterson Team Green Kawasaki machinery riders, in second place. He's number 2, 77 points. Barry McLaughlin on 75, Ross Saunders on 74, Keith Peters on 51, and Malcolm Moore on 36. Expect any of those numbers, 1 to 6, to be up there and battling. Brian Patterson, we well know from previous contests just how competitive he is, and Graham Allen appears to be the man to beat with the substantial points lead, 91 as opposed to Brian Patterson's 77. That's the gap between first and second overall. They're away. This is the big machinery. Not only do you need a lot of skill, but a lot of bravery to ride these, particularly on a circuit like this. Already that's Graham Allen away in the lead. Brian Patterson pulling up behind him. Number 2 Kawasaki, but just look at the straight line speed of these big 500cc machines. Kawasaki's have always been very, very quick in a straight line. Brian Patterson certainly and Graham Allen can make them handle as well. Graham Allen returning to his native New Zealand after 8 months of racing 250cc Husqvarna in Australia. Finished 13 in the Australian Mr. Motocross series. Certainly has gained a lot of experience from that Australian trip. Team Green, really a force to be reckoned with in the big class of motocross in New Zealand. Don Perry has been a sponsor and supporter of motocross for so long. Their machines are always brilliantly well prepared. They have had successful riders for the last several years. Points leader Graham Allen on 91, and just look at the style of this man. Brian Patterson's going to have his work cut out to follow it. Looking back at third place, looks like Barry McLaughlin from Hamilton has 75 points. But it's going to be the two Kawasaki's they've got to catch. Yes, it is, in fact, Barry McLaughlin in third place there. Another man we would love to have seen is Murray Anderson, who unfortunately is not competing today because of a broken arm, which hasn't healed as quickly as he thought it might. And Murray Anderson is officiating today as the riders' representative. Graham Allen, originally from Parnassus, which is about 70, 80 miles north of Christchurch. He was the 125 national runner-up in 84 and the 250 national runner-up in 85. And as the fastest New Zealander in the smaller classes, he felt it was time to tackle the big boars. I doubt very much that he's going to be happy to settle for runner-up position this year. Certainly looks all the way like a winner, with a good margin over Brian Patterson in overall points. Finishing in second place would be good enough for him today to take out the national title, but he's not going to be satisfied with that, obviously. And look at the gap now to Brian Patterson. Still Barry McLaughlin in third place. Ross Saunders, I think, in fourth.
Certainly a big jump for Graham Allen to come from 125s to 500s, and this will certainly be a circuit that he's going to feel it on.
And each time around, making that series of jumps looks so simple. Considering the small amount of time that the wheels spend in contact with the ground, you've got to be pretty accurate about where you point them when they are touching the ground. Quite steep, that little piece there.
Second and third.
19 and a half minutes gone, so we imagine it will be the white flag this time around for Graham Allen. Brian Patterson and Barry McLaughlin behind him.
There's Patterson and McLaughlin just exiting the right of your screen there. Still battling out that second and third position where they've been, Tony, for most of the 20 minutes.
This circuit in the first of 3 races today to decide the national championship. The man with the substantial lead about to enhance that lead. He has 91 as opposed to Brian Patterson in second place with 77 points. He's about to make it 111 points.
Lap times really haven't changed from the opening laps of the race right down to this last one. He's kept the pressure on all the time, and he's just basically ridden away from the rest of the field.
He really has had no competition to ride against. It's been very much an individual effort. tribute to his concentration and ability and stamina to stay at the head of this field and to pull away as easily as he has done, to get through the traffic without any hassle at all, and really giving no chance to Brian Patterson and Barry McLaughlin.
Superb bike preparation.
That he had built up. But by the way he's catching the back markers again, he certainly hasn't slowed down. White flag held and waiting for the checkered flag. Graham Allen takes the checkered flag, screaming through the picture with Brian Patterson behind him and Barry McLaughlin in third place. So Graham Allen enhancing his already substantial points lead in the overall championship. You wouldn't expect a lot of change in that order. Graham Allen, very, very hard to beat on the big Kawasaki. Another 20-minute race, as are all three in each class today, deciding the national championship. Really, the 125 class is where the close competition has been. With the 250 and open class, it seems that they have established an order which they are fairly well sticking to. Riders just making sure the bikes are warm and that their minds are on the job. 23 starters in this. The smallest field, 40 odd in the 125 and about 37 starters in the 250 class. 24 starters in the open class. 24 there, Matt Humphrey from Onehunga. On the outside, Will Murphy, number 20. They're away, let's see who gets the whole shot. The big screaming run down to that first corner. Patterson is there, and so is Allen. Allen into the first corner first, Patterson second. Being overtaken into second place there by Ross Saunders. Saunders on the Yamaha. Allen on the Kawasaki. Man who won the first race and leads overall in points.
Just got so much horsepower, that Kawasaki, when it comes out of that sweeping left-hander. He gets on the gas, it's getting drive all the time. Brilliantly ridden by Graham Allen. The circuit, Tony, standing up excellent, isn't it, with the pounding that it's been getting today?
I'm surprised how well the surface is holding and the amount of adhesion they're getting. Even on these big machines, they're really grunting out of corners very well.
This is the big jump.
Graham Allen from Brian Patterson at this stage, a repeat of the first race. And it looks as though Brian Patterson may get a little closer in this one than he did in the first to be able to challenge Graham Allen. Graham Allen has a substantial points margin over him though. Patterson getting just a little sideways there. Looking back to third place is still Ross Saunders from Tauranga. Third place in the first race went to Barry McLaughlin from Hamilton. It's Ross Saunders from Tauranga who's up there in third place behind the two Kawasaki's now. Right behind him is Barry McLaughlin. McLaughlin in touch with Ross Saunders. And already the two Kawasaki's in front, starting to leave all the rest in their wake. Pulling away quite substantially now, Graham Allen. Man from Taitapu near Christchurch. A good South Islander, we won't be parochial. Just 2 minutes of the race gone. And already he has about 15 metres on Brian Patterson. And Brian Patterson has about the same margin on Ross Saunders in third place. Saunders starting to pull away from McLaughlin in fourth place. And at the same time as he does that, Graham Allen pulling away from Patterson, who's in second place. There was no question marks at all over Graham Allen's stamina or fitness in the first race. He was riding just as well at the end as he had at the start. That's Patterson, that's Saunders. And McLaughlin behind Saunders. Now look back for McLaughlin. Just saw a flash of him there. He's dropping off the front three. Saunders managing to stay in touch with Patterson and Allen. And here's McLaughlin.
If anybody who's very serious about their motocross racing now, obviously spends a lot of time running and also many hours a week in the gym, weightlifting, doing all sorts of various exercises. As Tony mentioned earlier too before, it's rated as the most demanding sport in the world, and certainly when you look at the way in which these guys are perhaps not knocking themselves around, but the things that they're asking their bodies to put up with on any particular Sunday afternoon is far beyond the reach of somebody sitting on the rocks with a fishing line.
Hardly surprising that this man, Graham Allen, the Cantabrian, is going back to Australia. He was there last year riding for Husqvarna, and he's going back to ride the Huskies again. Quite a fan of the Husqvarna machines, which have been in motocross as long as it's existed, with a great deal of success. He seems to get to grips with a Kawasaki pretty easily, though. Certainly in New Zealand, when he rides Kawasaki, there's no disadvantage to him, because probably no one in New Zealand has had more experience at top level than Brian Patterson on Kawasaki's, and he's not having any trouble beating him at this stage.
It's a good thing that the top New Zealanders do find the time and the money in particular to go back to Australia for our winter time, because there's quite a few of the top Americans there, some of the Super Bowl experts are there. Jimmy Ellis is one of them, and he's taken on the best in Australia and been beaten several times. And you know, I really think that because we're only a little small country down here with more sheep than people, I think in terms of motorsport is that we more than carry the New Zealand flag overseas, and Australia is a very close and a very cheap and comparative training ground before perhaps some of our riders head for Europe, England, or even the States.
And speaking of Graham Allen in the lead of this race, as we look at Ross Saunders, number 4, this is Graham Allen. Behind him, Brian Patterson, keeping in touch.
This is Brian Patterson in second position. Another one of the Team Green Kawasaki's, aviating straight over the top, coming round to lap Matt Humphrey.
And it looks as though Brian Patterson is once again going to have to settle for second place in the National Championship. He finished second last year behind Murray Anderson. And this year it looks as though he's going to finish second behind the Cantabrian Graham Allen.
Very experienced man, Brian Patterson. He's been around for a number of years. The race again dominated by Graham Allen and Kawasaki.
Now Graham Allen may have just slightly got off the pace, knowing how much margin he had, because Brian Patterson has picked it up and has closed just a little on him. Not enough to challenge yet, but he's certainly closing up. If he's going to do the job, he's going to have to try very, very hard on this last lap.
But Graham Allen doesn't seem to be using the amount of revs that he was earlier on. Just hearing him go out of some of those slower turns, he's not buzzing the engine up as high as what he has been earlier on. Couldn't get over the enormous horsepower of this thing when he came out of the gate in those opening laps. Unbelievable speed.
I think another point that should be made is how reliable these engines are. When you consider the amount of work that these engines are doing on and off load, which is not good for any engine, it's amazing how well they stand up, because they're using all the rev range, they're changing gear very, very quickly. But as you can see from the back wheel, the load on the engine is off and on all the time, and no rhythm to it at all. That's very hard punishment for any engine. I think it really is a credit to all the Japanese manufacturers. These engines stand up as well as they do to the punishment that they get.
Yes, I think the riders will be going back at the end of each heat and changing the oil filters, or the air filters, I'm sorry, with these, washing them out, you know, to make sure that they get plenty of fresh air to breathe through, because they're actually tucked up in most cases up between the rider's legs, up under the seat near the shock absorber, and the amount of dust that gets in there is unbelievable. Even on a circuit like today, it's the sort of thing to keep that engine in its top racing condition. Of course, you know, being a two-stroke, it basically relies on compression all the time to make the thing operate properly, and just the slightest wear in the barrel through, you know, some dirt getting in or something like that, or proper engine maintenance not being carried on. Big wave to the crowd there over the big jump there. It can certainly just knock that fine edge off them.
Round on what we assume to be his last lap now, with 22 minutes showing on the clock. This is Graham Allen from Taitapu in Canterbury, who has ridden 2 flawless races today to take him to the point where he cannot really be beaten for the National Championship. The big wheelie over the start-finish line for Graham Allen. Brian Patterson with 2 second-place finishes so far. But Graham Allen looks like having sewn up the Open Class National Championship for 1986. Graham, congratulations on having won the Open Class Championship. It's quite a big step up for you, isn't it?
Yeah, so I've been campaigning smaller bikes for the last 2 years, and since I've got on the big bike, I've really enjoyed it, and everything seems to have gone well for me.
For most people, stepping up to the Open Class or 500cc machines is really quite a step, and it takes a little while to settle in and to perhaps match it with the leaders. Are you surprised at how quickly you've got on the pace?
Yes, I am in a way. It was hard to tell when I've been racing in Australia, and I didn't know how fast I was going against other New Zealand riders. And I think the experience that I gathered over there has helped me a lot with getting on a new bike, a big bike, and doing well.
Been riding Husqvarnas in Australia. How different is the Kawasaki?
Well, getting off a 250 Husqvarna, which was what I campaigned mostly in Australia, onto a big 500 Kawasaki was not a hell of a lot of difference, but it's been really good. The Kawasaki's a great bike.
What did you think of the circuit out there? It seemed to have a little bit in it for everyone.
Oh yes, it's very tight on one half and quite fast and open on the other half, so any sort of rider can do well.
Didn't seem to be any nasty off-camber stuff or too many tricky bits in there, but enough for the skill to show through.
Well, I think the Supercross part, the tight, twisty part with lots of jumps, is where the aggressive rider will shine through with attacking the higher jumps and big high booms and things.
Were you surprised at how easily you beat Brian Patterson? He's really been a leading campaigner for a number of years here, hasn't he?
Yes, Brian's always a hard man to beat, and it's been the first time that I've really raced against him on equal machinery. And I knew that Brian would be right up there, and he's proved that he can, still do it with his second placing.